If I were to suggest to a client that they were going to pay me every month for the rest of their lives, trust me, they would be out of hypnosis in an instant, and they'd be suing me for trying to extort money from them.
Hi everyone, this is Daryle Hamel with Stophameltime, and here we are with episode 7. And joining me in this episode is Alvin Bartz, who is a hypnotist. Or, you know what, Alvin, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do? But I also want to say that you're also a fellow Toastmaster in the St. Petersburg Toastmasters with me. So, Alvin, what is it exactly that you do or used to do?
I see myself, and I've got the credentials to prove it, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. And that means that I'm trained as a clinician to help people solve emotional, psychological problems, but I use hypnosis as an adjunct to allow that to happen more succinctly, more quickly, more effectively.
Like things that are in their mind are psychoses, correct?
Psychosis may be a little bit out of my league.
Okay.
What I end up helping people with is behavior management issues. I help them deal with, like, for example, anger, frustration, resentments. I help people to cope more effectively with relationships that are troublesome. I help them to overcome stresses in their life, phobias, anxiety disorders. I've never had a client that I had to chase away. I've had people will come to me or call me and say, "Can you help me, remember where I put my glasses?" And I'll say, "Come on in. We'll give it a shot." What the hell?
That's amazing, because everything you just listed are usually the things that hold people back in life, right? They're usually the barriers as we're going from being a child to an adult. Those are the barriers that we or other people help place in front of us that kind of hold us back or start limiting us. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Is that what you found throughout your life?
I found that quite often it will amaze you how simple it is to resolve some of these issues, especially with hypnosis as a tool. I got into clinical hypnosis because the standard way of helping people with, let's say, for example, anxiety or phobias, there's a thing called graduated desensitization. You have a person imagine that they're walking into a room, and across the room there is a cat. They're afraid of cats. Mm-hmm. And you have them determine how strong that emotion is, the distance from the cat, being afraid of them, how on a scale of 1 to 10, that might be an 8 or a 9. And then you have them relax. And now the cat is moving towards you. It's now 20 feet away. And then gradually, little by little, you desensitize them. So eventually the cat is up on their lap, they're petting the cat, and from that point on, they're no longer afraid of cats. But it's very time-consuming. But with hypnosis, you can do a similar process, but it speeds it up significantly.
Yeah.
I would think I had mentioned before, one of the problems with, let's say, psychiatry, and when they used to actually do talking therapy, was that it took a long time to develop rapport with the therapist. Mm-hmm. First, you feel a little anxious. You're afraid to admit some stuff about yourself. You're not trusting of the therapist. But little by little, over the course of a year or two, unfortunately, rapport is established and more progress is made. With hypnosis, if you don't make rapport on the first session, you're not going to get a second session. If the person doesn't feel comfortable enough with you to entrust that you know what you're doing, that you're going to be an effective tool for the changes they want to make, then without that rapport, no therapy can happen. But it happens very, very quickly once that rapport is established.
Would you say that hypnosis, some people look at it almost as if like a party trick, right? Because we've seen people on stage, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, like where you'll get a group of people on stage, and the gentleman who, was claiming to put them under hypnosis will walk around and he'll put them under, quote unquote, put them under, mm-hmm. Or into a state of hypnosis, and he'll have them, clucking like a chicken or barking like a dog. Mm-hmm. And so some people say that's real. Some people don't believe it. They say it's fake. Some people are like, oh, it's just a party trick, and that's great. What are your thoughts on that, Alvin? Are those people clinical hypnotists, or hypnotherapists?
They may or may not be therapists, but they're definitely hypnotists.
Okay.
And they definitely are eliciting genuine responses. For example, one of the things that sets hypnosis apart from conscious existence is the ability to fantasize or to create. For example, you can get a stage hypnotist could get one of the people on the stage who was a deep somnambulist, able to reach the deepest levels of hypnosis. They could hand them a potato and have them take a bite of it, telling them that it's an apple, and the person tastes apple.
Wow.
And so the ability to hallucinate sights and sounds and experiences is a phenomenon that only happens in hypnosis or psychosis.
As we're going into understanding hypnosis, what it is, when you're in hypnosis, are you sleeping, Alvin? What is a state of hypnosis where people can be affected so powerfully, subconsciously, or what is it? What is the state of hypnosis or this hypnotic trance? Are they sleeping?
Hypnosis has been referred to as an altered state of consciousness.
An altered state of consciousness.
It's a state of consciousness where you're willing, for the purposes of therapy or whatever, to suspend your credulity, to look at a situation with an imagination of a child, not the adult brain that we come into the therapy session with. So it allows the therapist who knows what he's doing to tap into memories and experiences that are really salient, that are really pertinent to the problem. That's one of the reasons that hypnotherapy can do in 5 or 10 sessions what 5 or 10 years of psychiatry can't do, because it allows a person to experiment in their own imagination how they're going to feel and what they're going to react to in situations that normally would have triggered a negative reaction.
So is it like a direct link to the subconscious?
Exactly. It's a direct link to the subconscious, but there's always kind of like an overlord in the brain that is guaranteeing our safety. There's always a part of our consciousness that is never subdued. That part is looking out for our own best interest. In other words, if I were to suggest to a client that they were going to pay me every month for the rest of their lives, trust me, they would be out of hypnosis in an instant, and they'd be suing me for trying to extort money from them. You're only willing to cooperate with the hypnotist as long as they're on the same page as you. As soon as they deviate, you become more and more suspicious. For example, imagine that you're swimming on the surface of the water. You're a good swimmer, you have good lungs, you're in good shape, and you're not afraid to swim a mile. Okay? Now you take that same swimmer and you have them dive underwater. If they're 4 or 5 feet down and there's no obstructions, they're very comfortable and relaxed. They can get up easily. But the deeper they go, the more suspicious and the more on the lookout they are for things that would hinder them or interfere with them.
Like a claustrophobia almost or something?
Like
or
a fear that you're not going to make it to the surface.
Gotcha, okay.
So when you so the deeper you go into hypnosis, the more observant that little part of your mind is to see, am I being manipulated? Is this a double entendre? Or are there suggestions here I'm not willing to accept?
Really?
The deeper you go, the more specific the hypnotist has to be in order to avoid losing the trance itself, losing that hypnotic state.
So, Alvin, is that why some people are more prone to hypnosis than others? I mean, so, and the only reason I'm asking this is because I have watched a couple people or a couple things where well-known hypnotists have put people on stage. And some people didn't go under, right? They would say, I'm going to snap my finger and you're going to bark like a dog. And then you would have like 1 or 2 people out of 20 who would jump up and like go full into it. And then other people would almost like wake up and they're like, what am I doing up here? And then some people would still be under and they would just kind of bark in their chairs. So it seems like some people would snap out of it. Some people would commit 100%. And then some people were kind of like in a 50-50 realm where they weren't jumping up and committing to it, but they also were under. Well, why is that? Because it's not something that's jiving with them as far as their brain, or why is that? Why are some people more susceptible than others?
Well, it's not even a matter of being susceptible.
Okay.
One of my pet peeves with the stage hypnotists is they create the illusion that they're making people do things. when a person goes to a stage hypnosis show program,
Yep.
they know that if they get up on the stage, there's a good chance they're going to be made a fool of. There's a good chance they're going to be the center of attention. These people are referred to as latent exhibitionists. They need an excuse to act out. Now, that doesn't mean that the
never
things
looked
that
at it that way.
that doesn't mean that the things that they're reacting to aren't happening in their imagination or in their mind. It simply means that they are more willing to get up and make a show of what they're doing. The stage hypnotist starts with 20 people because he knows that out of those 20 people, maybe 5 to 8 will be the somnambulists, the one who can reach the deepest level the fastest. Those are the ones who can hallucinate sight and sound and fragrance. For example, the stage hypnotist could put ammonia under someone's nose who was deeply hypnotized and tell them that they were inhaling or breathing in perfume, and that person would smell perfume.
Wow.
If they put that same ammonia under a person's nose who wasn't hypnotized or that deeply, they would jerk their head away just like they would if they were smelling salts to awaken out of a fainting.
Right.
So the ability to hallucinate sights and sounds and fragrances and flavors is the stock and store of the stage hypnotist. But he conveys the message that they can be manipulated and made to do things, and then maybe told that they won't remember that they did them, and they won't remember that they did them, which induces the possibility in people's minds that you could be manipulated by a hypnotist, made to do something that you would never do, and then forget that you actually did it.
Well, right. Why wouldn't we think that way, though, if that's what we're seeing, right? It's almost as, I mean, and it almost makes it sound like for somebody who's a clinical hypnotherapist, that's kind of giving you guys a bad stigma or a bad rep.
Right.
Right?
That's for sure. In addition to that, there's the normal bell-shaped curve of hypnotizability. You've got some people on the low end who are just suggestible. These are the people who enjoy the commercials and remember the jingles, and those are the ones who will be, through the power of suggestion, make some choices that maybe they wouldn't have made if it wasn't suggested in such an attractive way.
Right.
On the other end of the scale, you've got the somnambulists, and those are the people who can reach the deepest levels of hypnosis to a point where you could perform surgery without them feeling any pain at all.
And then you have the people in the middle who are just kind of, they're more suggestible than, what did you call them?
They're less suggestible than the somnambulists, but they're more suggestible than the ones who are simply persuaded by logic and reason.
So you're saying a vast majority of people can use hypnosis to say quit smoking, to eat less food, to eat better food, to be more productive, to learn how to focus more,
right,
and cut out distractions,
and to overcome, let's say, the fear of public speaking,
or heights. Can you be suggested to overcome the fear of heights?
Yeah,
through hypnosis.
There's two approaches that most hypnotists will use. The first approach is graduated desensitization.
Graduated desensitization.
Right. Graduated desensitization basically means that you're now approaching the bridge. What level of anxiety are you feeling? Relax. If you know, I teach my people self-hypnosis. You're approaching the bridge. Now you're going to do a little self-hypnosis. Of course, if you're driving the car, you're not going to close your eyes, okay?
Right.
But you can be hypnotized with your eyes open. In fact, there's some techniques where you have people open their eyes and imagine they're looking at a movie screen, especially when you're reviewing causes for trauma in the past.
Right.
But at any rate, graduate. So then
That's
now
awesome.
this is what we were talking about in the car. There's a concept called ideomotor responding.
Ideomotor responding. Okay.
And that is like if you made a gesture like a good luck or thumbs up or like pushing a button.
Right,
okay?
right.
Let's say that we used a gesture of putting your thumb down and pushing a button. So now you're approaching the bridge, and now you can push that button, and that is a trigger that reminds you of the hypnosis session that we use in the office, where you were now feeling much more relaxed as you approach the bridge. Now the bridge is right before you. If you're still feeling a level of anxiety, you can press that button again. It's an imaginary button, but it's the trigger to a session that we had that allows you to now be comfortable going over that bridge. You're now over the bridge, you give yourself a thumb up, and that's a gesture that's triggered with to feeling good about what you have accomplished, like remembering when you won that first race, or you won a spelling bee, or that you were singled out for the way you looked, or something positive. So that positive thing with the thumb up can now be a reward that you give yourself for getting across that bridge without anxiety.
Alvin, that's amazing. I want to go back to something really quick that you had said about the stage hypnotist.
Okay.
And I guess I never thought about it that way. But earlier we were talking about how I asked you, I said hypnosis can kind of help you overcome maybe hurdles that you placed in yourself from a child going to an adult. And one of the things you had said is that maybe some people want to act out. They want to be seen. And so when you think about it, we've learned in Toastmasters, almost everybody wants to get up and talk and have other people, like they want to be heard, right? It's just part of, I think, human nature to want to communicate and be heard by others. We do love the sound of our own voice. We do love our own name. But we found out that as people get further and further into Toastmasters, we almost can't shut them up, right? Mm-hmm. And so you had said that when these people are in the audience and they get up there, they came to a hypnotist thing knowing that they may be on stage, knowing that.
And maybe hoping at some level they would be.
Right. And so they're already kind of programming, right? Isn't that some kind of like subconscious, some conscious things are already going on saying, hey, if I get chosen, I am going to go because I wouldn't mind getting up there because, like you said, there may be some latent or something buried inside where they want to be on stage. Mm-hmm. They want other people to see them. And so what you're saying is if this is the case and they go under, that now this hypnotist is allowing them to remove that barrier or he's removing that barrier by suggesting this is what they want to do. And they've always wanted to get up and be in front of people and act. So the hypnotist almost removes that barrier. And then whatever suggestion he puts in there, they just want to do it and be in front of people. So they're more willing to get up and do that. Is that what you're saying?
The stage hypnotist is in business to make people laugh. He's in business to put on a show.
To entertain.
To entertain, exactly. The people who come to see the stage hypnotist, many of them would love to be up there on that stage. And so the stage hypnotist, he does something like this. He might say to the audience, I want you to put your hands together and interlock your fingers. Go ahead and do that. Put your fingers together, interlock them. Now imagine they're becoming like a vice and they're getting tighter and tighter and tighter still. They're so tightly locked together now, steel on steel, that you can't pull your hands apart. Go ahead and pull your hands apart. Go ahead. Try to pull your hands apart. Okay? Now, the people who don't pull their hands apart or have great difficulty in pulling their hands apart are going to be his baseline. He's going to start with these people because they're obviously...
I'm trying to...
Relax your fingers.
Okay. So it's amazing because the mind, in my head, you were saying that, and I was thinking, I was like, well, I can't pull my hands apart if I'm trying to continue to vice them together. So it's almost like I couldn't because I'm like, the more I tried to pull, the more they tried to vice.
Exactly. And so these are the people that he would call up on the stage, the 20 or so people who had difficulty or weren't able to unlock their hands. That means that they're very, very suggestible, number one. Then he'll do a few other exercises or a few other things to weed out the ones who are on the lower end of that range. He really wants to end up with 5 or 8 somnambulists, the people who are capable of hallucinating sights, sounds, smells, flavors, things that will play into his game.
So he's almost the entertainer, right? Because that's what he's there. It's not that it's devaluing his ability to hypnotize people, but he is there for entertainment purposes.
Exactly.
Not there for clinical. Even if he's a clinical hypnotist,
he's
there to entertain.
Chance to get
so
people
what he's
to
doing
do
is
things.
Qualifying people.
Right. So now he's down to 5
Gotcha.
or 8 people that are the somnambulists. And then he'll play with their emotions a little bit. He'll say, let's say, the one that I saw in Las Vegas, he had one woman who was enraptured by him. She just couldn't get enough of him. She was in love with him. Another woman, he told, she was very suspicious. She felt very insecure. Every time he got near her, she tightened up and she backed off. And every time he got closer to the one who was, quote unquote, in love with him, she basically was throwing herself at him. Oh. And so the stage hypnotist plays with facial expressions and emotions that are genuine emotions that are triggered by imagination. And that's one of the things that are so fascinating about hypnosis, is that you can instill. In fact, I was reading some more material recently about one of my mentors, Milton H. Erickson, was kind of like the father of clinical hypnotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very remarkable, intelligent, brilliant hypnotist.
What was his name?
Milton H. Erickson. Google
H. Erickson.
yeah,
He's considered the father of
of clinical hypnotherapy.
Clinical hypnotherapy, not hypnotism, but clinical hypnotherapy. Okay.
Right. Phenomenal person that basically laid the foundation for me in some ways to become a hypnotherapist myself. The desire to be like that man. You can YouTube him and you'll see amazing information about this incredible guy. Getting back to the stage hypnotist, he does hypnosis justice in that he demonstrates, like with the example of the potato, that hypnosis can alter our conscious awareness. He's chosen people who are latent exhibitionists. They want an opportunity to show off. And they're also the ones who can hallucinate and follow the suggestions that he makes. Once again, I think I mentioned the problem with the stage hypnotist is he conveys the notion that you can be made to do things and not remember them, which sets hypnotherapy back 1,000,000 years. Because
it's like
if a
it's like the
person
Manchurian Candidate,
exactly,
where people are programmed to say, like, when you get in proximity of the president, you are going to kill the president when you hear the trigger word
Ace of Hearts or Queen of Hearts or whatever it was. Yeah,
and that's just Hollywood.
And it is, but it's not just Hollywood, because that can be done. But not just with hypnosis. You'd have to use aversion therapy and drugs in addition to hypnosis.
And a lot more time, I bet, than
more time than they were able to do. But everybody would say the same thing about the sergeant. Oh, yeah, he saved our life. He was a hero, da-da-da-da. And it was that repetition of the same exact phrases that triggered the notion that something was going on in the Manchurian Candidate.
Okay, so you just mentioned something I thought was interesting. You had mentioned like aversion and things. There's also some other, there's meditation, there's autosuggestion, and these things are supposed to be able to help us tap into the subconscious. Mm-hmm. Are they similar to hypnosis? Are they good? Are they good to use with hypnosis? Are they substitutes for hypnosis? Well, where do they fall in line? Like, you know, when it comes to the subconscious and what you can do and all the, where would you place that?
When you're hypnotized, your brainwave activity slows down. Normal, I don't have all the information in front of me.
Is that like the theta brainwaves? I hear people talking about how we have alpha,
beta, delta.
But I guess the theta is the one that a lot of people try to get into.
Right, because it's one of the deepest levels of meditation, and the deepest levels of hypnosis is triggered by or responding to that slower and slower brainwave activity.
Oh, wow. So almost like right before we fall asleep.
Well, think about it this way, and this is kind of new for me to talk about. If on our conscious level, our brain is moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, we're jumping from one idea to the other idea. We're flitting from what did I have for breakfast this morning to what am I going to do when I get to the job. Mm-hmm. We're flitting with somebody cut you off in traffic, and you're now dealing with anger, and now you're thinking about a situation in your family that might be it might be sad and troublesome.
It's like the joke that they tell when the human male thinks about sex 115 times within a minute or something like that.
The mind is, on the conscious level, is way up there in terms of how rapidly we move from one thought to the next thought.
Yeah. It's amazing how much we can process.
And bifurcating. At one level, we're thinking about, how we're going to respond. At another level, we're imagining our wife undressed in bed, waiting for us with a big smile on her face.
Right.
So the bottom line is that's our conscious mind. Now, as you get deeper and deeper into meditation, as you get deeper and deeper into hypnosis, that conscious mind begins to waver and begins to fade, and you begin to get into singularities of thought. You're thinking of the sound of one hand clapping if you're a Zen Buddhist. You're thinking about a beautiful landscape, and remembering the details if you're into hypnosis and guided imagery. As you get into lower and slower brainwave activity, you can begin to single your mind towards ideas and suggestions, quite often that are amplified by positive affirmations.
Wow.
So
Never thought about it that way.
So when you get down into a very, very slow brainwave activity in hypnosis, and you're saying something to yourself like, no one has the power to upset me without my consent. No one has the power to upset me without my consent. As you say this thought in your mind or out loud, you're now planting that deeper and deeper into your subconscious mind, which will accept what it is that you're saying. And so the bottom line is you have to be really careful what you say to yourself, even at an active conscious level.
Is that why they say never participate in negative self-talk?
Yeah, I don't know who says that, but they're right.
Well,
They're absolutely, whoever says that.
but I've heard that. I've heard, we were talking earlier, like Tony Robbins, and they always say, like, don't participate in negative self-talk because you're always listening. Is that what they mean?
Exactly. Not only that, but there is a real universal law of attraction. There is a real phenomena that birds of the feather will flock together, that what you think about and what you concentrate on will manifest, what you ignore will evaporate, fade away, disappear. So what we do too often is we agonize over every little mistake that we made. We tell ourselves what we shouldn't have done. We tell ourselves, and we call ourselves names. How could I be so stupid?
You idiot.
You're an idiot,
moron.
right? So you're putting yourself down. And then the people will say something like, it always happens. I always put my foot in my mouth. I can't seem to follow through and seal the deal, close the deal. I'm good at getting people's interest, but then I can't close the deal.
So as soon as we're saying to ourselves, but I can never, you're saying that in a certain way. You say it enough, like you start programming.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And our subconscious mind follows what our conscious mind says. It's not analytical. It's not analytical. It doesn't say, oh yeah, but you remember 3 months ago you sealed the deal. No, it simply believes that what we're saying is gospel and it will bring it about. It will help to manifest what we're focusing on. And that's why hypnotherapy is so powerful.
Because it goes into that programming.
Right, and we reprogram. We say to the person, now you're going to say phrases like, everything I do adds to my health and my happiness, not like, I have to eat everything that's in front of me, Now,
I've listened to a lot of things out. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because I found this whole concept of the subconscious and the conscious mind amazing. And there's people, one of the people I really like to read that I think is phenomenal is Seth Godin. And some people call him the godfather of marketing. But what he calls the subconscious, right? Because we have different brains. And so I guess the oldest part of our brain is closest to the
brainstem. Yes.
Brainstem, right?
Sure.
It's closest to, I can't think of the spine.
Right.
He refers to that as the lizard brain.
It is.
And he says the lizard brain can override anything because it's basically that subconscious. It's just automatic. And this brain is fairly new.
Right. And it's also oriented towards survival. That was the brain that allowed us to run away from enemies and to hide if there was something dangerous in the area. It was the thing that got us up on trees. It
was the fight or flight without thinking about it. It just kicks in.
That's where it stems from.
So
the brainstem.
Is it true that we go through our daily lives like almost 80 to 90% on this subconscious subroutine, just doing things without consciously thinking about it? And then like another 5 to 10% of the day are our conscious, we do things out of our conscious thoughts. So in other words, if we have this negative self-image in our subconscious of ourselves, that we're automatically going to assume like, I can't seal the deal. So I'm going to go and meet as many people as I can, but I know I can't seal the deal, so I won't seal the deal. But we'll go through our day like 90% just on automatic mode. Have you heard something like that, or is that?
Oh, no, what you're saying is absolutely true. Quite often we program ourselves all the time. What we say on a conscious level trickles down to the subconscious level. So our belief system, our self-image, all of this stuff is determined by what we have as a sort of conglomerate of our personality, our life experiences, responses from other people. one of the ways that hypnotherapy is beneficial is that we go directly to the subconscious mind, because in alpha, beta, delta, gamma, when we get into those really 4 cycles per second wavelengths of the brain activity, now you have a direct doorway to the subconscious mind. It's not going to, the problem with the subconscious mind is it doesn't recognize a negative. In other words, if you want to be a good therapist, you're not going to tell a person what they're not going to do. You need to move them towards what it is they need to do to make the change. I'm becoming more outgoing. I'm finding myself more comfortable with people. I'm no longer, I cross bridges without any equivocation or doubt. Nothing has the power to upset me without my consent. We're using affirmations that in hypnosis begin to trickle down to the subconscious level, where they become part of our game plan.
So wait, just to clarify, you're saying that you want to move them more. The subconscious can't discern like good or bad or negative or positive. So it's not where it's not where it can make the choice. It's not where choices are made. It's just where there is a command or an action. So what you're saying is, like, let's say you were trying to hypnotize somebody in Toastmasters and they wanted to get better at speaking. You wouldn't suggest to them in the subconscious, I'm not a bad speaker. You wouldn't suggest that. You would suggest, I am a good speaker. I like to speak like the positive things. You wouldn't try to negate a negative.
Exactly, because the subconscious mind doesn't recognize a negative as a negative. It's just a statement. And so what you want to do is make statements to yourself that lead you where you want to go. And it sometimes gets a little tricky. It's not the easiest thing to remember when you're working with a client that you don't want to say, smoking no longer has a hold on me.
Is this what you would say is like the clinical side, like understanding this?
It's one of the reasons that hypnotists are hypnotists and hypnotherapists are therapists.
Right.
Because the hypnotist knows that he can get a person into a really deep state and have them hallucinate or remember or see things in their imagination. That's about as far as the hypnosis goes. The hypnotherapist is the guy or the woman who uses those abilities of our brain and our mind and our imagination to lead the person towards the outcome they're seeking.
Learning a lot today, Alvin, with the differences, and everybody always says the nuances, but it's the nuances that matter at times, right?
Well, you have to know that you're not going to help a person quit smoking by emphasizing the thing that they don't want to do. You have to stay focused on the outcome. I had a client recently, I think I mentioned it in our last talk, that wanted to fly to New York to visit family and friends in New York City.
I briefly remember you mentioning something about
and hadn't been able to fly for a long time. And so she came to me with just 2 weeks to go before her flight.
So 2 weeks before she had to fly, and she was afraid to fly.
And she decided that she asked people in the community about me, and I had helped other people do a similar thing. I had a longer running start to help the other people, but I love a challenge. And so I said, yes, it's going to take 4 sessions, and we'll have 2 a week.
And you knew this. Now, is this recently that this happened?
Yeah, this was just about a month ago.
About a month ago, okay. And how long have you been doing?
I've been working as a clinical hypnotherapist since 1983.
Okay, we're going to have to get into that. So you had an idea that it was going to take at least 4 sessions.
Yeah, I normally, when I'm working with quitting smoking or weight control, I like to schedule 4 sessions.
So where you live, this person would come to where you...
Came to my house.
Okay.
But I started at the end. This is an interesting technique. Getting off of the plane, having had a wonderful, successful flight, seeing their friends, renting the car, doing the things that you want to do in New York. How you got there was saved for the sessions that followed that.
So you started with like the positive aspects. Like once you get off that plane, it's all fun. You get to see the people, why you're there.
And feeling when you got off the plane that it was a wonderful, joyful, and amazingly uneventful experience.
The positive feelings, right?
You did it. You made it happen. You got off the plane. Then I asked, how did you do that? Mm-hmm. Well, you did it by doing the eye roll and the deep breathing and the self-hypnosis and the positive affirmations, and that's the end result. And then little by little, I wove more and more things into the detail so that each step getting in the car, her husband was going to drive her. So being in the passenger seat, going over the bridge, all of the things that she would see on the way there were triggers to help her become more relaxed and more comfortable. And then of course, she likes to read, so getting on the plane, after the plane took off, she got absorbed in her book. The time went by very quickly. One of the things that hypnosis can do is it can help you distort time. Not everybody experiences time in the same way when they're hypnotized. There's some of my clients who will think that a half-hour session or a 40-minute session lasted 15 minutes or less. There's some people who think it went on for hours. So there's a different perception of how time is moving. And for this lady, time seemed to stand still or just disappear. And so she got on the plane, and the next thing she knew, she was getting off the plane. And
Really?
How she did it was to do the self-hypnosis on the way to the airport, in the plane, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, when you say self-hypnosis, and I've heard you use the word affirmations a lot, is that part of the self-hypnosis, or saying these affirmations?
Well, let's say there's like 3 steps involved.
Okay.
The first step is you're going to set aside the time to do it. You know, you can't do it while you're rushing through a supermarket. You need to set aside a little bit of time that you're going to practice self-hypnosis.
Okay.
Then you're going to do the technique that...
Now, is that like meditation? Not to cut you off, but...
No, it's exactly like meditation.
So meditation, affirmations, hypnosis, this all kind of is like, all helps, all of it.
No question. In fact, people who meditate or people who are doing yoga, these are people who have been able to calm their mind, because you can't be in a lotus position or taking the deep breathing that you do with yoga without putting your mind at lower and lower cycles per second.
And when you're at lower and lower cycles per second, that's why meditation is so powerful against stress.
Right, because
stress
now
is
you're
the
not,
movement of the mind.
When you're stressed, you're thinking about the ramifications of any given situation. Otherwise, there'd be no stress. You're stressed because you're seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and mixing them all together while you're rushing through the supermarket.
And the mind doesn't have a chance to slow down except for when you sleep. But if you're not sleeping well, possibly because the mind's not slowing down. So for somebody that has a mind that just goes, by practicing meditation, or you're practicing to slow the mind down. And sometimes even you're saying the good, the bad, the ugly. I guess if you meditate, they always say focus on your breathing.
Yeah, that's one of the first ways to begin, is just limit your focus to something that you have to do anyway.
And like you said, the subconscious can't discern between negative or positive, bad or good. If you're doing this in meditation, you're just focusing on breathing, which is neither good or bad. It's just breathing.
Right. And you can enlarge it. You can bring it to the point where I breathe in calmness and peace and well-being. I breathe out doubts and fears and worries. I breathe in calmness and peace and joy. I breathe out negative energy. You have
an amazing voice, by the way, very calming voice.
That's why I do what I do, because it comes easily to me. I don't have to strain my voice to. And then so much of hypnosis is for the hypnotist, is the cadence. It's the rhythm of your speech. It's the images that you create. Over the years, I've developed 5 or 6 or more, and each individual might trigger a desire to create something altogether different. I'm calling them standard images that I utilize to help people make changes. Can I give you a couple examples?
Oh, please give us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even before we start working specifically with an anxiety disorder or a stress-triggered event or whatever, I can have them imagine, for example, one of my images are the seeds of success. Okay?
The seeds of success.
So imagine that you're resting on a grassy hillside, looking out at a wilderness or a woodland. And there's a path before you. It's the path that you've chosen. And now imagine yourself walking through the woodland. Perhaps you can see the sunlight flickering through the leaves and branches of the trees. Perhaps you notice the fragrance of the pine. So we get some detail that, pleasant. You're feeling light on your feet. You're moving from where you are to where you want to be.
Some mental imagery.
One of the phrases I like to use from time to time is, and as you go on your journey, my voice will go with you. A calm, relaxing voice. I remind you over and over again, you can do it. You can make the changes you want to make, become the person you want to be.
You're like a mental coach.
And so now you're walking along the path, going down. I'm going to count backwards now from 8 to 0, 5 to 0, whatever I think is necessary. And each step along the way, you're going to move closer and closer to this clearing in the middle of the woods. In the middle of the woods, a safe place where only you can go. Now you're there. 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Each number relaxing more and more. If you want to, I'll actually do a hypnosis session with you.
Maybe at some point we should do like a live one.
That would be great.
Where I'll sit down and we can video it. And,
that would be
just
fantastic.
See.
I would love it. So now you're in the clearing in the middle of the woods. So imagine that you've dug a hole very wide and very deep in the soft, rich earth, there in the middle of the clearing, in the middle of the woods, this safe place where only you can go. Now, before you plant your seeds of success, it would be a good idea to get rid of all of the garbage, the manure, the fertilizer that you've carried with you for far too long. So into that hole, I want you to place all feelings of anger, whether it's from the ancient past or from right now. Anger is just an obstruction to your success. So put in that hole all of your anger. Anger at the government, anger at people who've wronged you, anger at mistakes that you've made. Put your anger in that hole. It will serve you as fertilizer for your seeds to grow. All feelings of unworthiness, all feelings of anxiety, all feelings. So we throw into that hole whatever I believe is relevant to that person's presenting issue, right? Mm-hmm. So now we have that shit in the hole.
These hindrances, right?
These are the things that are blocking you. Your feelings,
or the things that when you said our mind is racing, mm-hmm. the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
It's almost like we're trying to remove maybe some of the ugly and some of the bad so that more of the good is prevalent.
What's happening most of the time is that these are the things that are blocking you from doing the thing that brought you here to see me. You came to see me because something is not working for you. Otherwise, I'm usually the last resort, by the way. People would prefer to take a pill than to be talked to. But the bottom line...
But usually it's here.
Yes.
It's not the pill.
Yeah, well, the pill can, it can slow down brainwave activity. It can...
Short term, but it's not the long term.
Right.
If you have something mental blocking...
It isn't the solution. So now we got rid of all of that garbage, right?
Okay.
Your anxieties, your feelings of unworthiness, your feelings of shame or blame, whatever it is that I think or you've talked about is relevant to why you're not able to make the change you want to make. Now, look in your right hand, and in any way that's right for you, picture and imagine your seeds of success. Mm-hmm. And when you're ready, plant those seeds and give them room to grow. Smooth over the earth, pat it down, go over to that lovely little stream over there that you've been following, and get a bucket of water. There's an old wooden bucket there. Water your seeds of success, and sit back and relax. And somehow you know that your seeds of success will grow. They'll grow into trees of opportunity, into beautiful trees of possibility that will bring forth their fruit in their season. And then I'll go into some affirmations. As you're resting there with your back against that big pine tree, I want you to repeat these thoughts with me. My inner wisdom is guiding me now. And 3 times, my inner wisdom is guiding me now.
Now, will people say this out loud?
Yeah, they can. And
have you witnessed this? That people will say, "My inner seeds are."
I can say they can. I give them permission to do it either way, either softly out loud or powerfully in the back of your mind. Repeat these thoughts.
Okay.
Everything I do adds to my health and my happiness. No one has the power to upset me without my consent. I respect myself completely as I am, and I'm getting healthier and happier every day. So usually I'll have 5 or 6 affirmations. Once again, I'm fishing around in my memory banks for what would be the best thing to use at this particular time, knowing that we're going to have 3 other sessions where I'm going to be using not the same imagery, but the same basic idea, so that when we actually begin to do the work on the thing that brought you to see me, that is no longer the big issue that it was when you first came in. For example, maybe in the second session, I'll have you imagine that you're in a canoe. And you're canoeing from this shore to another shore. That in the canoe, there's a big box or bag of ugly rocks. And these are the mistakes that you made and the anger that you had and the wrongs that were done you. These rocks
or the sadness of somebody passing.
Exactly. These are the things that are holding you back and locking you in. Now you're in the middle of the lake. Reach into that bag and pull out a rock. This rock might represent your anger. Okay. Now it doesn't matter why you're carrying that rock, or how long you've been carrying it, or why you picked it up. What matters now is that here and now you can throw that rock into the water and it may become a sanctuary for fish to be safe. So throw away that rock. Reach in and grab another one. This represents, feelings of not being understood. Whatever are the relevant things that person has already presented to me, I can have them throw away.
So mentally, if there's something subdued in the subconscious, and it's something that we involuntarily think about, or something that says, I'm going to speak on Tuesday evening, but I have this rock in my subconscious that says, you're not a good speaker.
Right.
You're horrible.
People laugh at you when you're talking.
So, and basically what you're saying is take mentally, subconsciously, we're taking that thought, putting it into the rock. And if we're subconsciously, mentally throwing it away into this pond, it's no longer there. It's almost like we're removing it from our subconscious and we're not thinking about it when we associate it with me speaking on Tuesday or anybody.
What I'm trying to say is that after 4 sessions where I use imagery of throwing away rocks or leaving, I have a magic fountain that steps in and washes away the debris in your life. There are 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different possible things that I can do from memory, and I can invent ones whenever they're necessary. And the bottom line is I'm laying the foundation for the change without talking about the change. I'm not going into right now, you're no longer going to be afraid to cross the bridge. I'm simply making a foundation. I'm laying the foundation for that to happen. I may include it in some of the sessions, but the most important thing is with imagination and imagery and affirmations, by the time we have that 4th session, you're ready to make that change.
Like the lady who flew on the plane.
Exactly, and she was successful. She
Quick
enjoyed
question.
it.
When you were talking about the lady flying to New York and the 4 sessions, in that you had said, you're sitting down in your seat reading your book. If you put a suggestion in like that, have you found throughout your past with your clients that they would sit down and read the book also? Because if you planted that seed, through hypnosis? Or would they?
Especially since this was one of the diversions that they knew they could use.
So you asked beforehand if they like to read a book.
Oh, for sure. I would never impose my belief system on someone else, even if it's something as simple as reading a book. Maybe they would rather read a magazine. Maybe they would rather just close their eyes and nap.
So let's say like they like to watch a movie on their device,
Right.
and you would say, as soon as you get in and the flight attendant's done, you pull out and you watch one of your favorite movies you love to watch.
Or you choose one from the menu in front of you. Yeah, sure.
So you would suggest something that they do.
It wouldn't be the same thing for everyone.
So you get to know the people a little bit better before you...
Yeah, I don't just jump into hypnosis. I'll spend the first 15 or 20 minutes, number 1, trying to understand what it is they would like to get from the experience. And number 2, talking a little bit about what they've already tried and whether anything that they've done is successful. And then looking for specific imagery that they'll be comfortable with. For example, when I first got started, I never gave any thought to the idea of walking through the woodland. One of my first clients that I tried that on, or used it on, she had been attacked in the woods. And as soon as I mentioned going deeper into the woods, she was out of hypnosis and pretty much out of my life, because I hadn't done one basic fundamental thing, and that is to say, I'm going to be using this imagery, or I'd like to use this imagery. Does that work for you? Or I might say to you, can you remember a place out in nature, or it could be in the house or wherever, that you felt really safe, that you felt really secure, and that you felt protected? Oh yeah, this lady, there was a lake near her house in New York, a big, beautiful, not gigantic lake, but she could see the trees on the other side and the mountains in the background. And so I utilize imagery that they feel comfortable with.
Wow. That brings me to another question. So you had said that, you get to know them and say what their aversion is. Mm-hmm. What if you can you do this, and have you had somebody come to you where they may not know what the trigger was that's creating something like, so let's say that somebody, they're not sure what the trauma is, mm-hmm. but they come to you and they say, Dr. Bartz, last year I was, very loving. My husband and I got along great. And somehow something this year, I can't explain when, but we're not like that anymore. And I don't know, sometimes I see him, I just get angry and I don't know what changed. I mean, have you ever had somebody like that? And can hypnosis help with that? Or is that more going to, like you said, a therapist or a psychiatrist maybe to kind of work it out?
Well, there are some tools in my toolkit that can help to uncover where this is coming from.
Can you give us an example?
Okay.
Maybe of somebody that you've helped with that? Or somebody that may have had a trigger and you had to, like you said, use one of your toolboxes to help uncover because they didn't know what it was?
Imagine that you're
44.
44, that's what I thought. Okay. So let's say that in a similar way, there's a trauma from the past that's affecting you. It doesn't always affect you, but from time to time, something will pop into your head, and you'll find yourself acting in ways that you're not very proud of, or that you feel uncomfortable about, or whatever. But you don't know exactly where that's coming from. So let's look in an in-life regression for the trigger that initiated that kind of reaction.
In-life regression.
Right. So that means that since you're 44, Daryle, I would have you imagine that you're walking down a well-lit corridor like in a hotel. And there are doors on both sides. There's 44, and there's 43, and there's 42, and there's 41.
So we're walking through each year of the life.
Each one represents a year of your life.
Okay.
And when we reach a door where you feel uncomfortable, or you feel anxious, or you feel something that's triggering a response within you, tell me to stop. 32, 27, 15.
Wow.
So we get down to 15, and my client says, stop. I said, okay, now, before you open up that door, you're protected in a beautiful white light, and there's nothing you're going to see or experience that you haven't already lived through successfully. But it's creating some problems for you here and now. But it's a projection room in that. When you open the door, you'll see some sophisticated electronic equipment, like a computer screen, and you can now go in and review that year. You were 15 years old, and you're going to zero in on what it is that's causing a similar problem today. And so you'll view it, and then I'll say, raise your finger. Once again, this is an idiomotor response. I'll have them lift a thumb or raise a finger when they finish looking at the video for the year.
And the subconscious can do this.
Of course.
This is like giving me goosebumps to think that this is possible.
I tell you, another thing that's really exciting about idiomotor responding is that your subconscious mind never lies. So, for example, if I hit a nerve, if I get resistance to what I'm saying, now it's going to be easier for you to let go of those negative energies than ever before. And you raise your finger like this. I'm looking for subtle signs that that's a sore point. You're going to give lip service to saying yes, but there's a part of your subconscious mind that is saying no. And so knowing that a response of almost any kind, a movement, reaching up and touching at that particular time, is an indication that what I'm saying is not being received. And so I have to find a back door to get into helping that person make the change. Can't be the same thing repeated over and over again, because I'm going to get a similar response. But just relax now. And then I'm going to take you perhaps to a situation where you were mastering something similar to that. You were on top of your game, and now I'll lock that into your memory so that when you review this experience, the resistance that was there before is no longer part of the problem. But it's a way of getting into what it is that triggered that response that's causing the problem in the marriage.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. I love how you said the subconscious can't lie. Just like the subconscious can't discern good from bad, it also doesn't know to lie. That's done in our conscious mind.
We find expedient ways of getting what we want. And if the truth won't work, then we can come up with something
or we'll lie to avoid conflict or
to not hurt somebody's feelings. Or there's a lot of good reasons to not tell
white
the
lies.
Truth. Yeah, little white lies.
Now you've really got me thinking about the different reasons to use hypnosis. So, for example, you said most of the times we think about the negative things. I want to lose weight. I want to quit smoking. I want to be a better speaker or something like that.
Worse than that, we say, I can't lose weight. I can't quit smoking. we lock ourselves into the habits we don't like because we keep repeating as if it were a fait accompli.
I think that's how most people's minds go to, is I want to quit something. But you had mentioned about like planting the seeds of success. So can you also, or is it not just you, but is hypnosis also capable of, say, making people focus more? Is it possible to, if somebody says, sometimes I just feel lazy, Dr. Bartz, like, is that something hypnosis can help with? Or
For sure.
I don't know where my life's going, Dr. Bartz. I just feel like I'm out here floating and nothing's really interesting. Is that something that hypnosis can also help with?
Let me put it to you this way. When I first got started in 1983, I knew diddly shit about nothing. I mean, I knew how the brain worked.
That's not a lot.
Yeah, I know it's not a lot. I mean, I had an ego as big as a house, and I believe...
Wow, a young man with a big ego not knowing shit.
Yeah.
Where have I heard that before? Is that not humanity?
Well, it wasn't that I didn't know anything. It was just that I hadn't the experience of working with people on an individual basis. I had case studies, and I learned about the function of the brain and the levels of hypnosis, and a lot of stuff that they use as filler for any education. The most important thing is actually having somebody in your office and working with them.
Right.
And so it wasn't...
Doing the work.
Right. It wasn't until... And then it's sort of like, I hate to say it, trial and error to some extent, although you try to make as few errors as possible.
Isn't that why they call medical
practice.
Practice?
Yeah,
I own a practice because I'm always practicing.
I'm practicing medicine. I'm practicing psychiatry. But the bottom line is that little by little, I weeded out things that were misleading or things that did not expedite the changes that people wanted to make. But you start with a person from where they are. So there isn't just in-life regression, because sometimes the core of the problem stems from either imagined or real past life experiences.
Real past life experiences.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of maybe somebody you learned from or somebody you practiced on, as far as because you said in-life, did you say in-life regression?
Yeah, that would be something that I would use with a client who you described. But if we couldn't find the reason, and we went back to 1 or we went back to 4.
So you're saying always to birth. We walked down that hallway from, say, 44 years.
Right.
And I didn't stop at any door.
Right. Nothing.
Now you would
nothing
say
to
you walked down a past life?
Yeah, I would say something like, Daryle, listen, we looked through this lifetime and nothing came to the surface that indicates why you have an aversion to crossing bridges, or why you snap so easily when somebody doesn't do exactly what you want them to do. So let's see if we can find an explanation in a past lifetime. Now, keep in mind that it may not be a real past lifetime that we uncover, but it's always an explanation for a current life situation.
So it could be even something that we've imagined.
Right, or that we've seen in a movie or whatever. But the bottom line is, now I'll go and have you cross the bridge of time, and you'll go back to a particular lifetime, a specific situation that helps us understand it.
Is there anybody you've ever worked with that you can give us a specific that you've done this with?
I love this story. It's such an amazing story. It still gives me goosebumps when I tell it.
I got goosebumps, and I'm excited to hear it.
When I first got started, maybe my 12th or 15th client was a blind young man, 21, 22 years old, been blind since birth. And he had a very strange fetish. If somebody would take his hand, or if he heard heavy breathing like somebody with asthma, he would get sexually aroused. He would get an erection. And of course, people wanted to help him cross the street, and it got to be really embarrassing for him when he had this reaction. And so he came to see me to see if I could help him uncover what it was. And we did an in-life regression.
So you're saying that he was blind since birth,
right.
And when somebody would grab his hand to help him cross the street, which a lot of people would because he's blind, he would get an erection.
Right, or if he heard heavy breathing. And so I said, well, we went through this lifetime, this current lifetime, and there was no indication of anything that would relate to what you're dealing with. Would you mind if we looked for a past life explanation? And he told me that he was a Methodist, he didn't believe in it, but if I thought it could help he'd try it.
So you're saying you walked him through the corridor, started at 22 or 21, whatever, walked back, didn't have anything.
Right.
So this gentleman, once he came out, you said, you know what, I couldn't find, there's nothing there.
No, I
Would you
never
mind?
even brought him out of hypnosis. I just said, now that we've explored this and there was no clear explanation, would you be willing to look at a past life?
Oh, so
possibly?
he was still under hypnosis.
Right, because I always try to cram in as much as I possibly can in each session.
And like you said, he's not lying because you can't lie under hypnosis or
Right,
subconscious.
but it doesn't mean that you can't use your imagination.
Right.
And that's why I say that it may or may not be a real past life experience. But in this particular case, it proved to be a real past life experience. So I had him go back in time, crossing a bridge in time, to a time and a place that would help him to understand why he has this hand and heavy breathing fetish. He was a farmer in 1929 or 1928 in a place called Janesville, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Now here's a guy who had never seen anything in this lifetime.
Never seen anything physically.
No, born blind. But he was describing the split rail fences that they had where they would put two posts into the ground making an X and then run a rail across the top of them, so that was a very simple fence to maintain and to build. He described the maple leaves that he had never seen before, described the lay of the land, the farmhouse. Anyway, in this particular day, he had a horse-drawn team pulling a heavy cart that had milking equipment on it, heavy milking equipment. Mm-hmm. And he was offloading the equipment by himself. When the horses got spooked, they lurched forward, and the equipment crushed his chest. His parents, who were in their 70s, got him to the hospital, a place called Pine Grove Hospital. And there he was dying from crushed lungs with this horrendous breathing while his parents were holding hands and comforting each other. Once he understood that this was an event that may or may not have happened, but this was an explanation for his reaction, the reaction disappeared.
You mean the holding hand crossing the
street
and getting direction, or the heavy breathing?
Disappeared. It completely disappeared.
It stopped.
Right, it stopped. I had him come back again for a follow-up session, and it was no longer a problem, and we said hi, goodbye, and have a great day.
This was like your 12th or 10th?
This was one of my earlier experiences. I hadn't really mastered all of the techniques for past life regression. I'll tell you another interesting story, if you like. I had a very light-complected black man come to my office. He didn't have very much money, and so I charged like $20 a session because I always like challenging clients, and I learn as much as I give in each session. And his problem was he didn't feel comfortable with black people, and he didn't feel comfortable with white. He felt like an outsider in both groups.
So he was like mixed race.
Light-complected black man who didn't feel comfortable in either of the communities.
Wow, so he didn't feel like he belonged anywhere.
Right, exactly. And so we looked, once again, we're looking for an in-life explanation. Maybe he was beat up by black guys and then white guys joined in or something.
Right.
There is some explanation for this reaction, and we're going to find it. Well, we didn't find it in this lifetime, and I asked him if he'd be willing to look at a past life. And he said, yeah. And so we went back to a time in the 1840s when he was a house slave.
Wait, the 1840s.
1840s.
You started practicing in 1983.
Right. This was considerably before I started.
This guy would have been like 140 minimum. So there's no way that it was in this life.
No, of course not. No, this was in the 1840s. He was a house slave, which meant that he was given the responsibility of looking after the children, of helping to serve the food. He was given a lot of respect and good clothing because people would come to visit. But then there were the field hands who were darker than he was, because the house slave tended to be closer. There was a little dalliance going on in those days where the slave owners would sometimes have a little fun with the beautiful black slaves, and the offspring would be lighter complected slaves.
Right.
So here he was, not exactly trusted. He was still a slave. He had no freedom. He was basically working for free, but he wasn't subjected to the hot sun as the field hands were, the poorer food, the more shabby clothing. He had opportunities for some culture. He could read
So
books.
he was in the house, right? He'd
Right.
be in the mansion.
Right. He would be looking after the children.
He wouldn't be in the field,
No.
treated like dirt.
If
But he also wasn't in the house where he was like, say, the owners. He couldn't sit at the table and eat with them. He still served them. He was still a slave to them.
He was still
but he
a
was
slave.
like a higher
level
status.
Of course, and he was hated by the field hands because he always got the good clothing, the good food.
They resented him.
And he wore nice, stylish clothes when people would come to visit. But the field hands were working like slaves.
Right, so they resented him because he was a higher status and felt like he was better.
And he was lighter complected, so he was faking it being more white. There was a lot of reasons why this made sense.
They would call it a sellout.
Exactly.
Or is it the term Uncle Tom?
Exactly.
Like he'd be like an Uncle Tom.
Exactly. He related more to the whites than he did to the blacks. But
he never fit in with the whites.
But he never fit in exactly because he was not an equal. So once he understood this connection, whether it was real or imagined, it stopped being an issue for him. We sort of drifted apart after a session or two after that, but from what I could tell, he was pretty much beginning to feel comfortable and had made some new friends, and it didn't matter whether they were black or white. He felt more at home.
Holy smokes, that's crazy. That could even be something that was imagined.
But it was a good explanation for his situation. Now, there was no way to really research and find out. Maybe we could have, but it was a lot easier to do the research on Janesville, Wisconsin. I discovered there is a Janesville, Wisconsin. The church that this guy, the blind guy, was married in is still there. The name of the minister who married him is still a painting of him on the wall in that church. Pine Grove Hospital, it does exist to the day. And there's another interesting aspect. When you're hypnotized, even if you regress back to a previous lifetime, you're never unaware of where you are and what's going on. So, for example, this blind guy, when he talked about being in the hospital and his parents comforting each other while he was dying, he said, kind of an aside, he said, "Oh, that's why I told my mother when I had my tonsils out that I'd been in a hospital before, because I remember the smell of the bleach on the glasses." And Mom said, "No, you've never been in a hospital like this before." And of course he was when he was dying
Now,
in a previous life.
I think I'm going to take you up on that offer. And if it's okay with you, I would like to video a session, like maybe my first time ever trying it and see.
It would be wonderful. You would listen. The cool thing is, whether you incorporate any of it into your program, you'll have it. And so and I would like your wife to see it too, because I'm not going to mention any names. And if she watches it, there's a good chance that she'll have a running start. If we ever do have a session with her, she'll already be, more susceptible and more open to it.
Okay. Maybe the first time we do it, I would like to go a little bit more into some of the influences in your life regarding hypnosis. But to kind of round this out and finish this conversation, you had mentioned affirmations, meditation, self-hypnosis, yoga, hypnosis. What do you think is, especially in our day and time, we're both and maybe we'll go into more about Brazil and things like that, like I said, further down the line, especially when you and I get a chance to sit down and video that. But as far as the person right now watching or listening to this, Alvin, and let's say that they don't do meditation, they don't do yoga, they don't do affirmations, let alone go into hypnosis sessions or whatever. Do you think it's a good practice for people, and especially in our culture, which is very fast-paced, it's moving at the speed of light compared to even 20 years ago, and maybe you have a lot going on in their mind. Would you suggest, say, like affirmations or meditation if they didn't want to or couldn't quite get to a hypnosis session, or maybe to start with that before trying hypnosis to see and just kind of helping with their daily lives? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Anything that we can do to calm the mind and calm the spirit, to focus our attention, is beneficial. For some people, it's jogging. jogging or walking meditation where you're moving around in nature and you're just letting your mind float without having a specific target. One of the things that you need to ask yourself, what your viewers need to ask themselves, is do you like yourself the way you are? Are you content with the way you feel? Do you like your body? Do you find yourself calling yourself names or picking on yourself or putting yourself down? If the answer is that you're not happy with your body, you're not happy with your circumstances, then it could be that you're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. And so anything that can ameliorate or improve your well-being is worthwhile. For some people, it could be, take a yoga class. Give yourself like 1 or 2 yoga sessions a week where you can just have an instructor helping you move into different postures and different positions so that you don't have to focus on whether or not your boss likes you or you're going to get the raise or whatever it is, while you're focused on something like jogging or focused on something like deep breathing or focused on something like meditation. Meditation, most people go into it believing that you can just turn off your thoughts, but you can't. Your mind, you're into meditation and you're wondering if you did the laundry right, or if you remember to let the cat out last night, or
am I doing the pose right? Am I breathing right?
Sure. Oh. The mind is always analyzing and focusing on
the conscious mind, right?
Right. Always trying to figure out what did I win or did I lose? Was I right or was I wrong? Were they right or were they wrong? The more you can calm yourself down. So meditation that begins with focusing on your breathing is a good way to begin. So just sit still, quiet your mind, and focus on breathing in and breathing out. If you're into yoga, then the posture becomes important, but you could do it in a lazy boy recliner and still get the same benefit of calming your mind. Now, hypnosis, and I teach all of my people self-hypnosis, is an ability for you to go into a hypnotic state, which is the same as deep meditation. And in that state, you're encouraged to make affirmations or think thoughts that lead you in the direction you want to go. You want to say things to yourself that affirm your success. I'm becoming a better speaker every time I talk. People enjoy listening to what I have to say. I am really succinct and focused on what I talk about. These are things that I might say to a Toastmaster who's interested in improving their public speaking.
I think there's a big misnomer about what meditation is. Mm-hmm. And I've learned from practical experience that it takes practice, like anything. It's not like some people are made for meditation and some aren't. So when you watch somebody who's very good, it's like Toastmasters, like you said. Somebody may come in, check out the club, and they see people get up there and speak. They're like, wow, they're a great speaker. I can't be like that. Like, I just don't have that naturally. Mm-hmm. What they don't see is the 6 months, 4 years, 7 years before that of them working their way to there.
For sure.
But I think that's like meditation. Before I tried meditation, I would see people who were good at it, who had been meditating for over a year. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, I can't get like that. Like when I go to quiet down after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I'm out. Like I just, my mind's racing. And so what I didn't see before that was the hours and the days and the weeks and the months that they practiced that breathing, pulling the mind out, letting it go, pulling it back, and the practice. So I love that you said, like, you got to quiet the mind, practice the meditation. Maybe it's yoga. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's jogging.
Maybe it's floating in the pool, looking up at the sky and just letting, imagining what the clouds are looking at.
Do you believe in affirmations as well, Alvin?
Absolutely. In fact, meditation is eliminating thoughts. Hypnosis and guided imagery is an idea of using thoughts to move you where you want to go.
So it sounds to me the easiest thing to start is affirmations, right? Mm-hmm. And some people think it's hokey, that you sit there and say, you look in a mirror and you say, and you say to yourself, I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. Or I am much better than I think. Is that a way of saying that in that positive way, or is that kind of introducing like that negative?
Back in the late 1800s, there was a couple who traveled all over the United States, and their catchphrase was, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. It opened up the doorway to positive things happening because it was not limited to, I'm getting better at speaking, I'm getting better at self-confidence. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And people who began to say that began to experience changes in their lives because otherwise they're saying things to themselves, I'm a failure, I can't do anything right. The negative things that we say, because of the law of attraction, we attract more of the same. So if we don't believe in ourselves or we're telling ourselves something negative about ourselves, we're more likely to encounter proof that we were right. If we begin to start using affirmations that lead us where we want to go, guess what happens? We begin to get proof that we're right. The subconscious mind doesn't care whether you're saying something true or something false. Its job is simply to obey.
That's why subliminal messaging works.
Absolutely.
All right, let's finish it with this. And I know this is kind of on the spot, so I'm not expecting you, but can you give us maybe around 3 affirmations that are just good that somebody could start by? It's just saying,
sure.
And that may be one of them. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better.
Well, that's an excellent one.
What are a couple other good ones?
Well, one of the positive ones, all of them are positive, but one of the ones that I try to do at the beginning is my subconscious mind helps me in every possible way. My subconscious mind helps me in every possible way.
My subconscious mind.
And when
helps
you
me
do
in every
affirmations, you
possible
want
way.
to say it at least 3 times. And then there are some schools of thought.
Three times to yourself.
Yeah.
Say them out loud. Say it in the mirror.
You can. Now there are lots of different techniques. One technique is to say it out loud. Another one is to say it powerfully in the back of your mind. Another technique is to say it in different ways. For example, I might say, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Alvin, every day in every way, you're getting better and better.
Does it make a difference if you say it in third person like that? As opposed to
some
saying
peop-
every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. As opposed to saying, Daryle, every day in every way, you are getting better and better.
Once again, each of these variations have adherents who believe that it's more effective or it's equally effective. I don't labor over that. All I know is that the components of positive affirmations is that it needs to be in the first person, usually. It's great to say I, put yourself in there. And then the outcome that you're seeking. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to schmaltz it up a little bit, give it a little more zest and flavor, you add some adjectives, or like, I enjoy catching myself in the act of doing things right. I really enjoy catching myself in the act of doing things right. I delight in catching myself in the act of doing things right. So now from this moment on, every time I find myself doing something right, I feel delight and excitement and joy because I've already planted that as part of the formula. So affirmations need to be very, very positively oriented. It's not what you want to get away from. It's where you want to go to. I enjoy catching myself in the act of doing things right. I respect myself completely as I am, and I'm getting better and better every day.
Is this something that somebody should say in the morning, the afternoon, at nighttime? It doesn't matter. Just say them. Try to repeat them 3 times in a row to yourself.
If you really want to start seeing positive results from affirmations and meditation, first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, even before you get out of bed, set your alarm for 5 or 10 minutes earlier than you need to, turn off the alarm, and spend that 5 minutes programming yourself for success that day.
Wow, so you're saying let's say you're with your significant other and you don't want to wake them up. You're saying even just laying there mm-hmm. and going over it in your head mm-hmm. and saying, Daryle, every day in every way, you get better and better.
Right.
Daryle.
Well, let me tell you why. When you wake up in the morning, it's like your body is. Hopefully, you had a good night's sleep, and your body is rested.
You're still in the lower.
You're still coming out of alpha. If you've been dreaming, you're in that wonderful relaxed state. There's very little tension in your body. You don't have other thoughts that will come in the course of the day, like having to pay your taxes or wondering if there's enough gas to get where you want to go. These are things that can distract you from meditation. So first thing in the morning, before you get out of bed, Give yourself 5 minutes. And of course, since I'm going to be teaching you self-hypnosis, you can do the self-hypnosis first thing in the morning as well. Put yourself into a nice, deep, even more relaxed state, and then program yourself with 3 or 4 positive things that are going to make a difference. But you don't want to say, I'm not going to make a mistake in my speech today. You're going to say, it's going to be a smooth and easy delivery. I'm very comfortable with my subject matter. I enjoy talking in front of a friendly group, but I can handle hostility. The bottom line is that you want to set your day at the most comfortable time for you to plant these ideas, and that's first thing in the morning. For my clients, I have them practice self-hypnosis 3 times a day. First thing in the morning, last thing at night before they go to sleep, and sometime in the course of the day, taking 5 minutes to turn off the phone, go into self-hypnosis, and program yourself for success.
That's amazing, Alvin. Those are some good tips, and some of that I've seen a lot on positive affirmations and how to program ourselves or whatever, but I've rarely ever heard somebody say, as soon as you wake up, while you're still in bed, you're still, your mind hasn't even started to race yet. Mm-hmm. Start right there. Mm-hmm.
You got a blank slate. Your body is extremely relaxed, and you're open to your own suggestions.
I've heard it in the morning, but I don't think I've ever heard somebody say, while you're in bed and you're just still relaxed and still in that state, just start getting right into it. Start the day off very positive, right then and there.
And look for the outcome that you want. See yourself as successful.
Alvin, let me ask you this. You said that you still practice once in a while, or you still help people out with hypnosis. Is that something, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, is that something you would still practice?
I love working with people and making a difference in their lives. It gives me a personal satisfaction. I'm only charging $50 a session now. When I had my office, I had expenses, and so it was $100 a session. I believe at some level I am supposed to be helpful to people who have problems. I ask my clients, for example, we may have a hypnosis session in a little while, and I would ask you at the very beginning, Daryle, as a result of this work, as a result of this experience, finish the thought, I want or I would like. So every one of the sessions that I have a mandate. I want or would like, I'd like to overcome my fear of flying.
Right.
I'd like to overcome my anxiety in giving a speech. So now I have a mandate. I have in front of me, okay, I'm going to gear our sessions specifically to that. But in the next session, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Finish the thought, Daryle. As a result of this session, I want or I would like. And it may have shifted. Maybe you're already beginning to see some results with the first one. So now maybe what you want to do is you want to stop eating so impulsively, or overeating, or not being able to have one Cheeto and not eat the rest.
Alvin, how can somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to? Do you have an email address or anything that you would like to throw out there?
It sounds very egocentric, but my email address is Mr. Wonderful without an R 44, Mr. Wonderful 44 at gmail.com. That's MRWONDEFUL 44 at gmail.com. Or if you want to reach me by phone, it's area code 727-437-8491.
And it's okay if people call you and
I would welcome it. Listen, I don't need the $50 a session, but I enjoy having the extra money. And in addition to that, I also have a feeling that I'm still fulfilling. It's kind of like you spend all of your life becoming a concert pianist and then you just give up the piano.
Right.
It's not the way it works for me.
Well, in all fairness, too, I think if you offer something free, people don't find the value in it. So yes. I would say from the marketing side of me, definitely charge something so somebody is invested in it, because if you offer it for free, let's say you're the best person in the world. Tony Robbins could offer his things, his
workshops,
events for free,
right.
And people probably wouldn't give it the
respect
or the attention it deserves. But once they spend $1,100,
They're going to pay
They see
they're
the
going to pay
value.
attention.
So let's do this one last time, Alvin. First off, I want to thank you very much for joining me in the studio and your time and having this conversation and allowing us to record this and share this information with other people. Could you give me the email one more time, and everybody else watching or listening, as well as the phone number in which you can be reached at?
For sure. Mr. Wonderful without an R, 44 at gmail.com. That's MRWONDEFUL 44 at gmail.com. And my phone number is area code 727-437-8491.
And Alvin, one last thing. I think we should put something together right now. And that way, if we say it, we have to commit to it before we end this conversation. I think, and let me know what your thoughts are. What do you say so I can, and then everybody else can experience a better idea? Mm-hmm. Let's record a session, and I'll share. I won't unedit it unless it's way too embarrassing. But let's you and I do a session. Mm-hmm. We'll record it. Maybe we'll do a couple sessions, and we'll record them all, and then we can put it out there and kind of show everybody what to expect while going under. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
I think it's something that people would find interesting. Most people have no idea what hypnosis is,
right,
let alone how it's done. And I would welcome that for sure.
All right, then let's do it. Let's commit to it. So, this is the end of this conversation, but in the future, people can look forward to maybe in a couple of months or so, an actual session. And I'll use myself as the person and record that, and then we can kind of see what it's like.
Sounds great to me.
Well, Alvin, thank you so much. Dr. Bartz, Mr. Wonderful 44. Thank you for joining Stop Hamel Time, and I'm looking forward to our continued work together.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.